Hi, my name is Maris. This story starts with dinner. A dinner where the lights were warm, but the hearts were not. A dinner that showed me exactly where I stood in my own bloodline. Or more truthfully, where I didn't. The snow had only just started to fall when Mom and I pulled into the driveway. The house, grand, colonial, polished, glowed with strings of golden lights, wreaths on every window, and a blow-up reindeer that blinked with mechanical cheer. Inside, the walls were likely filled with the echo of laughter, forks clinking against porcelain, and the kind of joy that looks perfect in Christmas cards. From the outside, everything sparkled. From the inside, I was about to learn just how dark family could be. Ready? Mom asked, voice soft, eyes searching mine. Her hand hovered over the keys, like she might turn the ignition again and drive us away from here. I nodded. We're late, I said instead. Let's not make it worse. She smiled a tight, tired smile, the kind she wore more often these days. Right, let's do this. We stepped out into the cold. I carried the pecan pie we baked that morning. Mom carried a bottle of wine she probably couldn't afford. This was her parents' house, after all. And we were still trying, still pretending we belonged. The front door was slightly ajar. I heard music, laughter, the unmistakable sound of clinking champagne glasses. I knocked lightly, then pushed the door open. That's when the silence hit. Everyone was already seated around the long, elegant dining table. China plates, red napkins folded into little trees, crystal glasses half full. The roast turkey had been carved. Someone was mid-toast. And then we walked in. Chairs scraped, a few heads turned, eyes shifted. There was a moment, just a blink, where nobody said anything. Then my grandmother stood, still sharp as ever in her red silk blouse, matching lipstick, and pearls that always seemed to whisper, "Old money." Her voice was sweet, cloyingly so. "Oh, you came!" The words hung in the air like a dropped ornament. Then a dry smile. "How unexpected." Mom's grip on my wrist tightened, almost imperceptibly. "We brought pie," she said, setting it on the sideboard like an offering. "We saved room for it," someone said flatly, barely glancing over. "My uncle, maybe." They all blended now, same suits, same eyes. I looked toward the table. There were no empty chairs. I searched anyway. Maybe someone had just gotten up. Maybe someone would make room. That's what families did, right? But no one moved. No one stood. My cousin Jenna glanced up from her phone, shrugged. My Aunt Mary cleared her throat and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "There's no place for her." The words didn't land immediately, but then it hit me, hard. Not, no place at the table. No place, at all. Mom's face froze. She blinked once, then twice. Her lips parted like she might argue. But nothing came. I didn't move. I couldn't. My feet had fused to the hardwood. Grandmother sipped her wine and said, "I mean, it's not personal. We just didn't plan for extras." I looked down at my own hands, still holding the pie server like an idiot, like I thought this would somehow sweeten anything. Then came the final blow. "Maybe next year," my grandfather said, voice casual, not looking at me. The room murmured faintly. Someone laughed, soft and nervous. It wasn't funny. But that's how this family dealt with discomfort. Dismiss it, dress it up, and drink more wine. "I think we should go," Mom said suddenly. Her voice was shaking now, just barely. No one stopped her. No one said, "Wait, come sit." They watched us the way people watch strangers walk out of a restaurant, curious, indifferent, relieved they weren't the ones involved. As we turned toward the door, I heard someone whisper, "What did she expect, showing up like that?" I didn't turn back. I just walked, each step louder than the last. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Outside, the snow had thickened. I inhaled sharply, trying to clear the burn from my throat. The air felt sharp, like even the night itself was telling me to go. In the car, Mom buckled her seatbelt with shaking hands. "I shouldn't have brought you," she said quietly. but I shook my head. You didn't bring me. I wanted to come. She looked at me then. Really looked. I thought, maybe this year would be different. And I knew what she meant. Maybe this would be the year her parents stopped punishing her for having me. Maybe this would be the year I finally became more than just her mistake in their eyes. But it wasn't. It never had been. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and tried to remember every single detail. The look in grandmother's eyes, the exact tone of Mary's voice, the way no one stood up for us. I would remember. I would not let it go. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I deserved to know the truth about where I came from. Or where I was never allowed to belong. The first snowstorm of the season rolled in that night. Thick, heavy flakes swept against our windows, blanketing everything in silence. But inside our two-bedroom apartment, the air was loud. Loud with unspoken thoughts, with shame neither of us asked for, and with memories we never unpacked. After the dinner that wasn't, neither of us had eaten. The pie sat untouched on the counter. Mom had disappeared into her room without a word. I lay awake on the couch, fully dressed, arms across my chest like I was bracing for impact. Because even though I hadn't said it out loud, I knew the truth was coming. It had to, and it wasn't going to be kind. By morning, the world outside was white and still. But my world? Cracked. I found Mom standing in the kitchen, cradling a mug of coffee like it might hold her together. She didn't look at me when she spoke. They said you ruined my life. It was the kind of sentence that could split a person. A surgical cut. I stared at her. She added quietly, My parents. They said you were a consequence, not a child. A consequence. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, frozen, just like the snow outside. Mom took a deep breath. I was 18, barely out of high school. I had a scholarship, dreams. I wasn't supposed to get pregnant, but I did. And Dad? I asked, the word catching in my throat like splinters. She hesitated, her lips pressed tight. Then, he wanted to keep you. He was good. But he wasn't good enough for them. My hands curled around the back of a chair. Did they make you leave him? They threatened to disown me, she said. Said I could either stay part of the family or raise a mistake on my own. That word again, mistake. My throat burned. So you left? No, she said. He left. They made him leave. I didn't know until years later what they told him. What did they say? That I didn't want him. That I had the abortion. She set the mug down. But I didn't. And suddenly, I understood. The empty chairs. The way no one looked at me. The awkward silences. I wasn't just an inconvenience. I was a ghost they thought they'd buried a long time ago. Later that afternoon, I climbed up to the attic, a space I rarely entered. The air smelled like dust and mothballs. My breath puffed out in tiny clouds. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, maybe some trace of the girl I was before I knew what I wasn't supposed to be. I opened a trunk of old things, broken Christmas ornaments, a cracked photo frame, a yellowed baby blanket with a tear across one edge. Then I found it. A photo album. Leather-bound, heavy, the kind that belonged in a grandparent's living room. The cover read, Family Through the Years. I opened it. There were pictures of weddings, birthdays, picnics, graduations, neatly labeled, perfectly arranged. Cousins I barely recognized, smiling with cake on their noses. Aunts in matching sweaters. Grandparents dancing. But not me. I flipped page after page. No photos of me as a baby. No pictures of my mom pregnant. Nothing from the years I lived with them when I was little. And then I saw it. A gap. One page had clearly been rearranged. The corners were empty, the labels still there. Summers '09, beach house. But no photos. Just empty spaces where someone had taken the scissors to memory. I ran my fingers over the empty slots. That was the year Mom and I had stayed with them. I remembered the beach, the wind, the time I found a sand dollar and gave it to Grandma. She said it was worthless, that I should throw it back. Downstairs, I confronted Mom. Why aren't there pictures of me? She didn't answer right away. Then, they took them out. Why? She met my eyes. And for the first time, I saw it. Deep under her calm surface, something furious, something raw. Because they didn't want to remember. You were a stain they tried to scrub out of every photo. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed everything. The missing pictures, the beach, the Christmas dinner. But something else kept scratching at me, just under the surface. I remembered a fight years ago. I was 7. It was late. I was supposed to be asleep. I'd crept downstairs for water and heard yelling. Mom's voice. She's your granddaughter. And my grandmother. No, she's your burden. I hadn't understood it then. I did now. The next morning, I returned to the attic. I dug deeper, past the albums, past the blankets. I found a locked box. Of course, because secrets don't sit on shelves. They bury themselves. I took it downstairs, cracked it open with a flathead screwdriver. Inside, documents, letters, a stack of unopened envelopes addressed to my mom, sent from the same name again and again. The sender? Thomas Granger, my father. The oldest letter was dated from before I was born. I don't care what your parents say. I want this child. I want us. Please call me. The most recent? From 5 years ago. I've tried. I keep trying. If you won't let me in, at least let her know I exist. Tears pricked my eyes. Not sadness, rage. These letters were never given to her. Someone had kept them, stolen years from both of us. Someone who didn't want us to know the truth. My hands shook. Who would do that? And I knew. Because the return addresses had all been sliced off the envelopes, ripped away. But one had been missed. A corner remained, and on it, in tiny faded ink, delivered by Ronald M. Carter, my grandfather. I heard Mom behind me. Her voice broke. Where did you get those? In the attic, I whispered. They never told you? She sank to the floor. No. Oh my God! We sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of forgotten words. A part of me shattered. Another part ignited. I wasn't just forgotten. I was erased, but not anymore. The next week passed like walking through water. Everything moved around me, but I didn't feel part of it. School, the hallways, teachers calling my name. It all blurred. I kept the box of letters hidden under my bed. I didn't show them to anyone, not even Mom again. We hadn't talked much since that night on the floor. She looked like she was holding back a scream all the time. We lived in the same apartment, but the air between us stayed quiet, heavy, complicated. That kind of silence is never empty. It's the kind that roars. One evening, while Mom was at her second job, I dug deeper. Not just through old envelopes, but into the digital remnants she never taught me to avoid. I sat on the carpet with her laptop, unlocked because she trusted me. Folders, emails, archived messages. That's when I found the digital family tree. It was a Word doc, a neat table of names, great-grandparents, cousins, even third cousins in different states. Notes next to each, schools, wedding dates, what they were known for. There were entire sections about cousins who had dropped out of school but found God, or uncles who went bankrupt and rose again. They all had stories. But my name wasn't on the page. Neither was Mom's. I added my name to the file manually. Just one line. Maris Lee Carter, unknown future. But as I stared at it, it felt fake, forced, like carving your initials into a tree that someone else planted. We weren't family. We were footnotes someone ripped out of the book. The next morning at school, things got worse. Hey, Maris! A voice called from behind me at my locker. Jenna, my cousin, stood there, arms crossed. You know, if you're gonna cry about Christmas, maybe don't show up uninvited. I froze. What are you talking about? Her smirk curled. You think it's cute? Posting vague stuff online like you're the victim? I didn't post anything, I said, voice low. Oh, right, she mocked. So that post about families who pretend you don't exist wasn't you? My chest tightened. I had posted that. Just once. Just a sentence. No names. It wasn't about you. Doesn't matter, she said. You're just mad no one saved you a chair. Then she leaned in, whispered, maybe if your mom hadn't been a teenage whore, you wouldn't be so extra about everything. I didn't slap her. I wish I had. Instead, I whispered back, if you're going to say things like that, you should be brave enough to say them in front of your parents. Or mine. She blinked. And for a moment, she looked scared. Then she scoffed and walked off. But I knew. Someone had told her. Someone from the dinner had made sure the story kept spreading. That night, I opened the box again. This time, I laid out every envelope like a forensic map. Some were creased from age, some still sealed, some with postage stamps so old they looked like artifacts. I sorted them by year, read them slowly. Each one was kind, hopeful, confused, desperate, and all ignored. Then I found something new, a money order, $200, from Thomas Granger, dated 6 years ago. But it had been deposited, signed over to someone with initials I didn't recognize. RMC Ronald, my grandfather. My hands went numb. He hadn't just thrown away the letters. He'd taken the money. I printed out the deposit slip. It was faded but legible. It had come from a shared account. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew this wasn't about forgetting anymore. This was theft. It was intentional. It was cruel. And someone needed to be held accountable. The next Sunday, Mom and I sat in the living room. She looked exhausted, face thinner than usual, skin dull. She'd worked a double the night before and still folded laundry during a documentary about rescued dogs. Mom, I said, why didn't you ever tell me his name? She looked up. Who? Dad. She didn't answer. So I placed the envelope in her lap. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. She read the name, then the note, then the deposit slip. Her face shifted. Grief, then realization, then shame. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear to you, Maris. I never knew. I believe you, then. I think it's time you did. That night, I emailed Thomas Granger. The email was short. My name is Maris. I think you've been looking for me. And then I waited. The next day, I got a response. It was only one line. Please tell me where you are. I stared at it for hours. The next few days blurred again. School, work, more silence. I couldn't tell Mom yet. She wasn't ready. So instead, I focused on what I could do. I returned to the attic. This time, I found an old photo album marked Carter Family Archive. Inside were pictures from events I didn't remember. Picnics, church functions, charity drives. But again, no me. And yet, in one corner, a photo had clearly been cropped. I could see half a child's face, curly hair, small hands. It looked like me. I peeled back the photo carefully. Underneath was another one. Me, age 3, sitting on a man's lap. And not my grandfather's. I brought it downstairs and showed it to Mom. She gasped. That's him! Thomas? She nodded. They told me you'd never met. I looked at the photo again. The way he held me. The way I smiled. Someone had gone to extreme lengths to delete a bond. But not completely. 3 days passed without another email from Thomas Granger. Not that I'd expected him to flood my inbox. But silence, after that one urgent reply, hit different when it followed a lifetime of silence that wasn't his choice. I kept refreshing, checking spam, rereading his short message. Please tell me where you are. No punctuation, no name, just raw urgency. I hadn't answered yet. Not because I didn't want to, but because a part of me still wondered if this was real. If after everything, every lie, every erased photo, every stolen word, hope wasn't just another trap laid by people who taught me not to trust what I hadn't seen with my own eyes. Meanwhile, the house was beginning to change. Mom had gone quiet again. Not the calm quiet. No, this one was heavier. The kind where every drawer was closed too gently, every light left off a little longer than necessary. When she spoke, her voice carried like an apology before every sentence. We were two women living side by side, each drowning in our own tide. That night, I caught her holding the photo, the one I found hidden behind the cropped one in the album. Me on his lap. His face so full of something. Pride, maybe, or love. I remember this now, she said softly, not looking up. They told me I imagined it, that we'd never been in the same room. I sat down across from her. Why did you believe them? She flinched. Because they always say it like it's fact, like they control the story. Maybe it's time we start telling our own. The next day after school, I stopped by the town library. I wasn't there to study. I pulled up their public archives, newspaper clippings, social announcements, obituaries, marriage notices, property records. It took me 2 hours, but I found it. A 2007 column with a photo from a community fundraiser. I was in it, holding a balloon, smiling. Next to me, hand on my shoulder, was the man from the picture, Thomas. He hadn't just written, he had been there, publicly. The caption read, Thomas Granger, local business owner, joins the Carter family at annual youth fair. That line changed everything. I printed the article. Then, after school the next day, I went to the Carter family's home. Not mine, not really, but still theirs. Polished lawn, 3-car garage, hydrangeas perfectly trimmed. It looked like peace. But peace was a lie here. I stood on the porch, knocked. My Uncle Carl opened the door, face folding into confusion when he saw me. You lost? I held up the article. I found this in the public archive. Want to explain it? He looked at the page, then back at me. Where'd you get that? Answer the question. Carl sighed and stepped outside, pulling the door shut behind him. Look, Maris, it's complicated. No, it's really simple, I said. That's my father. You all told Mom she imagined that he existed, that he left. But he was at your events, your fundraisers, in your photos. Carl rubbed his temples. You don't understand. You're right, I snapped. I don't. I don't understand how you all built this fake family scrapbook and cut me out like a tumor. He lowered his voice. Helen didn't want him around, said he'd ruin things, reputation. She told us to shut it down. So, you all just listened? We didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, I said. You just chose comfort over truth. He flinched. Good. Then I turned to leave. Tell your mother she should have protected you better, he muttered. I stopped cold, turned back. No, I said clearly. She protected me the best she could. She just never realized who the real enemy was. That night, I finally replied to the email. I'm ready to meet you, but not here. Somewhere neutral, somewhere real. I sent it, and this time, the response came in minutes. Yes. Tell me where and when. I'll be there. The next weekend, I asked Mom to drive with me an hour out of town, to a coffee shop tucked along the river. Quiet, brick walls, indie music, the kind of place where confessions didn't echo too loudly. She didn't ask questions, just followed my lead. When we got there, I saw him immediately. He looked like the photo, just older. Worn, like someone who had waited too long in the wrong rooms. When his eyes met mine, he stood. Mary's, he said. I didn't cry. I didn't hug him. I just sat down. We talked for 3 hours. He told me about every letter he sent, every call that never went through, every door that never opened. He didn't accuse, he didn't beg. He just said, I've been looking for you every day since I was told you didn't exist anymore. When we finally left, Mom was waiting in the car. She saw him through the window. He waved. She didn't wave back, but she nodded. That was enough. When we got home that night, I went to bed holding the newspaper printout in one hand and the old photo in the other. They'd lied. And now, I had proof. Not just for myself, but for every person who'd ever been told they were a mistake. The invitation arrived by mail. Thick cardstock, gold trim, cursive font. Please join us in celebrating Helen and Ronald Carter's 45th wedding anniversary. The irony hit like a slap. After years of pretending we didn't exist, they still sent one. Not out of courtesy, but image. A paper mask to cover a fractured house. I tossed it on the table and walked away. Mom didn't say anything about it for 2 days. Then, over dinner, she asked, "Do you want to go?" I stared at her. "Are you serious?" She nodded. "It might be time." "Time for what?" I laughed. "A public humiliation? Another reminder that they wish I was never born?" She looked at me differently this time, not sad, not soft. "Time for them to see that you're not invisible anymore." I didn't answer right away, but I didn't throw the card away either. That night, I pulled out my old backpack and began to pack it. Not with clothes, but with truth. I brought every letter Thomas had sent, the photo from the fundraiser, the cropped image from the album, the deposit slip signed by Ronald M. Carter, the family tree missing our names, and I brought one more thing, a flash drive. I digitized everything. I was done hoping they'd admit it. I was going to show them. The venue was a country club ballroom, all glass chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows. A string quartet played softly as guests sipped champagne. Laughter floated through the air like perfume. Everyone wore black or navy. I wore red. Mom wore a simple dark dress, but I noticed she held her head higher than I'd seen in years. When we walked in, the room changed. People paused mid-sentence. Glasses stopped halfway to lips. Some smiled, tight, forced. Others whispered, and some looked away completely. Aunt Mary approached us first. "Oh, Lee, you came," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness. Then her eyes landed on me. "And you brought her." I smiled. "Wouldn't miss it." A waiter passed with a tray of wine. I grabbed one, even though I wasn't supposed to. No one dared say a word. We didn't sit. There were no seats assigned to us anyway. Instead, we stood along the far wall, watching, waiting. I spotted Jenna across the room, wrapped in a glittery cocktail dress, clinging to her phone like a life preserver. When she saw me, her jaw tensed. Good. Let her feel what it's like to be uncomfortable in your own bloodline. After dinner, there was a toast. Uncle Carl stood with a microphone, thanking guests, bragging about the longevity of love, legacy, and family. He said the word legacy twice. I counted. Then the lights dimmed. A video montage began on the screen behind him. Photos from their wedding day, kids growing up, vacations, church events, anniversary after anniversary. Every niece and nephew flashed on screen. Except me. I looked around. People smiled, nodded, some wiped tears. No one noticed I was missing. Or maybe they did. And they just didn't care. The video faded out to applause. Then Uncle Carl cleared his throat. "We have one more short message to share. A surprise tribute from the next generation." I pressed play on the remote in my hand. The screen lit up again. But this time, it wasn't a slideshow of curated memories. It was my file. A scanned letter from Thomas Granger. Then another. Then the deposit slip. Then the photograph from the newspaper. There were gasps, whispers. Uncle Carl turned toward me, panic etched into every line on his face. "What is this?" he barked. I stepped forward. "It's the part of the legacy you forgot to include." Helen stood up from her table. "Turn that off," she snapped. I didn't. I let it play. Then I spoke. "For years, you told me I didn't belong, that I was a mistake, that I imagined my own father, that my mother was reckless, and I was her punishment. But the truth is," I turned to the room, "you all knew. You all let it happen. You watched my name get erased from every album, every holiday, every family tree. And you said nothing." Aunt Mary hissed. "How dare you?" "I dare because I was dared to exist," I said. And I did. The screen now showed the family tree. Mine edited to include my name in bold. Maris Lee Carter, daughter of Lee Carter and Thomas Granger. Silence. Mom stood beside me now, hand on my back. Everything you see on that screen, she said calmly, was kept from us. By him. She looked directly at her father. Ronald didn't speak, but his hands were shaking. Then came the final twist. From the corner of the room, Jenna's voice rang out. She's not lying. Everyone turned. Jenna stepped forward, holding up her phone. I saw the letters once, when I was younger. Grandma told me not to talk about them. Mary grabbed her arm. Stop this! But Jenna shook free. No, I'm done pretending. The room fractured. People stood. Some sat back down, stunned. Others argued. I just watched. Then I walked to the mic. I didn't come here to destroy anyone. I came because truth belongs in every family album. And with that, I left. Mom followed. Outside, it had started to rain. Not heavy, just enough to wash something away. In the car, she didn't speak. Neither did I. But I felt it. Something had changed. I wasn't the secret anymore. We didn't talk about the party for 2 days. Not the faces frozen in mid-smile when the slideshow changed. Not the arguments that splintered like glass behind us as we walked out. Not Jenna's confession, or the way grandmother stared without blinking, like if she didn't acknowledge me, maybe I'd disappear again. Instead, we boxed up the house. Mom started it. The photo albums came off the shelves first. Then the old dishware we only used on holidays we never celebrated properly. One night, I came home from school to find her standing in the hallway with a roll of duct tape, labeling boxes. Donate, keep, toss. You're serious, I said. She looked at me, then back at the closet she was emptying. I'm done living where I was erased. I didn't need to ask where we were going. She already had a plan. A job lead, a small 2-bedroom across the state, clean slate, no familiar streets, no chance of running into anyone who might smile too wide and say, "Oh, you're Helen's granddaughter." We packed our entire lives into 10 boxes and a borrowed truck. The new place wasn't much, but it was ours. The carpet was stiff, the walls off-white and dull. But there was no echo of judgment in the hallways, no ghost of past holidays, no framed lies staring from the mantel. We unpacked slowly. There was no urgency. It was the first time we weren't running toward or from anything. One afternoon, I found the family tree again. Mine, corrected and printed, tucked between textbooks in my backpack. I taped it to my wall, not out of pride, but to remind myself, this is where I came from, but it's not where I'm going. Mom got the job, office admin at a nonprofit. She smiled more, slept deeper, and I started over too. New school, new teachers, new bus route, but the questions followed. Where are you from? Why did you transfer? Do you have any siblings? I gave simple answers. Just moved, needed change. It's just me and my mom. People didn't press, not at first. But I noticed the looks when I hesitated. The weight of building something new when your foundation had been made of sand. I didn't mind. I had other plans. Thomas and I met twice more in the city. He didn't try to parent me. Didn't try to make up for lost birthdays. He listened. Asked. Waited. He gave me a letter one day, one I hadn't seen, dated the week I was born. I don't know what they've told you, but I want you to know, even if I never meet her, I love her. She's not a mistake. She's the reason I'm still trying. I didn't cry. Not then. But I folded it into my wallet. Not because I needed it as proof, but because sometimes even the strongest bones need reminders that they were built to carry truth. Then the silent revenge began. Not planned, not broadcast, just unfolding. It started when I submitted an essay to a national youth contest. The prompt was simple. Write about a time you chose to speak up. I didn't name names. I didn't say my grandmother tried to delete me. I told the story the way I lived it, piece by piece, how it feels to watch your reflection fade from the eyes of people who claim they love you, how choosing silence is a death by 1,000 emotional paper cuts, and speaking up even once changes everything. 3 weeks later, I got an email. Congratulations. You're a finalist. Your story will be published. I stared at the screen for minutes. It wasn't just a win, it was validation. Not the loud kind, the deep kind. I told Mom over dinner. Her hands shook as she held the phone. You told the story? I nodded. Not the whole thing, just the part that mattered. She smiled. That's the whole thing. A few nights later, the organization posted the finalists' stories online. Mine was last on the list. The title was simple: The Girl Who Wasn't on the Guest List. People read it, they commented, not with pity, with fire, with, I felt this, with, I thought I was the only one, with, you wrote what I couldn't say out loud. And that's when I realized something. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like retribution. Sometimes it looks like becoming a mirror, for every invisible person still waiting to be seen. One afternoon, a message popped up on my school email from a girl named Ray. The last time I saw her, we were 12, sitting in my grandparents' backyard. I read your story. I know who it's about. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. If you ever want to talk, I'm here now. I stared at it. I didn't reply. Not yet. But I didn't delete it either, because change doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes it just shows up and sits quietly beside you. I didn't expect a microphone. I especially didn't expect to be handed one in front of 200 people. The auditorium wasn't big, just a local hall downtown, mostly filled with teachers, students, parents, and a few press photographers waiting for something viral. The Youth Voices National Finalists reading had drawn a larger crowd than anyone expected. I was the last to speak. The MC called my name with careful articulation, but it still echoed strangely off the high ceiling. Maris Lee Carter, finalist in Personal Truth category. People clapped. I walked to the stage. My palms were sweating. The printed pages of my story trembled in my hand, not from fear, but from something else. Something electric. The stage lights hit my face. I couldn't see the audience clearly. Just vague shapes, upright heads, a sea of waiting ears. I looked down at the title on my paper, The Girl Who Wasn't on the Guest List, and I began to read. I didn't tremble. I didn't rush. My voice was steady, not loud, not dramatic, but clear. I told them about the dinner I wasn't expected to attend, the photo albums I wasn't in, the silence that grew like mold between generations. I didn't name names, but I didn't need to. By the time I finished, you could have heard a pin drop. Then someone clapped, then more, then all. I stepped down, shaking for the first time. Backstage, a girl with braids hugged me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just said, "Thank you." I didn't know how much I needed to hear that, and I knew what she meant. Because some stories don't fill a void. They name it. 2 weeks later, the video of the reading went viral. Not overnight, not explosive, but steady, shared, reposted, quoted. A teacher used it in a classroom lesson. A nonprofit asked to feature it. A podcast host reached out. I didn't reply to everyone. I didn't need to. The story was doing what it was meant to do. People wrote me messages that made my throat burn. I wasn't in the family photos either. They made my mom choose too. So, I always thought I was crazy for remembering things they denied. And that's when I realized the quiet power of truth told plainly. It makes liars nervous. It makes the erased visible. Thomas saw it. He didn't call, just sent a text. Proud of you. Been proud since day one. I saved it. Then I got another message, from a name I hadn't expected to see again. Jenna. It was short. If you ever speak again, I'll be there, and I'll stand up this time. I didn't know what to say, so I typed, "Thank you," then deleted it. Then typed, "I believe you," and hit send. Weeks passed. Mom framed the story printout and hung it near the kitchen. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "It's just, I need to see it. To remember what you did." "What we did?" I corrected. She kissed my forehead. "What you survived." But it wasn't just survival anymore. It was identity. That spring, a college recruiter called. They'd seen the video. They read my portfolio. They offered me a creative writing scholarship. I didn't scream or cry. I just said, "Thank you," and stared at the offer letter for so long that Mom had to tap my shoulder. "You going to frame that too?" I nodded. Next to the tree. My wall was still bare except for two things: the corrected family tree and the letter from the school. My real roots and my real future. One evening, Thomas invited us to dinner. Nothing dramatic, just a casual place with booth seats and good lighting. He brought his partner, Leo, a kind man with warm eyes and terrible jokes. We laughed a lot, not because we were pretending everything was fine, but because the weight had shifted. No one had to earn a seat at this table. There were no empty chairs, no missing names, no hesitation in the introductions. After the meal, he handed me a small box. Inside was a necklace, a delicate gold chain, a nameplate pendant. It read, Maris. Just that. No middle name, no last name, no Carter, no Granger, just me. "It's not to define you," he said. "It's just to remind you." I wore it home that night, stood in front of the mirror. For the first time, I didn't see someone holding pain. I saw someone who had learned to carry it with grace. The day I left for college, the apartment looked the same as it had the day we moved in. Same peeling paint near the window. Same noisy radiator that rattled when it worked too hard. Same hallway mirror that reflected two versions of us: the girl and the woman who had once been forgotten, and the ones who rewrote what that meant. Mom hugged me longer than I expected. She didn't cry, but I felt the tremble in her shoulders. "You know who you are," she whispered. "You always did. I just didn't know how to protect it." I squeezed her tighter. "You didn't have to. You gave me room to find it." We didn't say goodbye. We just stood there until the Uber honked and I grabbed my bags. Campus smelled like change, like wet leaves and bookstore paperbacks and nervous excitement. I met my roommate, a girl named Sky, with sharp eyeliner and an entire bookshelf of philosophy texts. "You look like someone who carries stories," she said the first night, unpacking her tea mugs. I blinked. "What does that mean?" "Just the way you hold your spine. It's like you've earned it." I smiled. Maybe I had. Weeks passed. I adjusted to lectures, bad coffee, and silent dorm hallways at midnight. One evening, my creative writing professor asked us to write a personal narrative that didn't use our names, dates, or labels. "Strip it down," she said. "Tell me who you are without telling me who you are." I turned in 3 pages about an empty chair, a photo album missing faces, and a girl who walked into a party and didn't leave the same. The next class, my professor handed it back, with only 2 words written in red. "Write the book." I didn't start it that night. I wasn't ready, but I printed the pages, taped them to the wall beside my desk. One morning, as I stared at the first paragraph, I thought about the girl I had been, and I started a new document. Title, No Place for Her. I wrote the opening line. This story doesn't start with a tragedy. It starts with the belief that someone else's silence was more important than your voice. And I kept going. Near Thanksgiving, I got an email. From Ray, the girl who had messaged me after my essay first went viral. She had read the new version on my blog, the one with more detail, more honesty. Her message was short. I showed my mom. She cried. She said she used to babysit you. "I'm sorry we didn't say anything sooner. You weren't the only one they erased." I stared at the screen, heart thudding. Then another message came in. Then another. By the end of the week, over 50 strangers, some distant relatives, some community kids I barely remembered, had sent variations of the same thing. "We remember you. We remember her. We remember what they said. And we were scared too." I didn't cry, but something inside me relaxed. Like a door that had been locked for years finally eased open. Christmas came. I didn't go back. Neither did Mom. We spent it at a diner halfway between our 2 cities. She brought Thomas and Leo, I brought Sky, who showed up in a beanie and brought homemade fudge for everyone. We laughed over pancakes. There were no matching sweaters, no hymns, no crystal glasses. But there was a tree with one crooked light strand, and a waitress who sang off-key when she brought pie. And for the first time, it felt like Christmas. After dessert, Mom handed me a box, not wrapped, just plain cardboard. Inside was the old album, the one from the attic, but this time it was full. Every missing photo had been replaced. Not by the originals. Those were long gone. But with reprints, new scans, memories reborn. A picture of me in the red dress at the party. One of me and Mom on our first night in the new apartment. Another of Thomas holding up my college acceptance letter. At the very end, taped carefully, was a copy of my story. She'd added a title page. Her place was always here. I looked up, eyes burning. She smiled. They don't get to keep our story anymore. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply choosing to live free from the pain they gave you. If there's one thing I've learned from this journey, it's that being left out doesn't mean you're worthless. It means it's time to build your own place, on your terms. I stopped waiting for an invitation and started writing my own chapters. And if you've ever felt like there was no seat at the table for you, maybe it's time you built a bigger table. What about you? Have you ever felt erased by the people who were supposed to love you most? Tell me in the comments, where are you from and what's your story? If this video touched your heart, let me know your thoughts below or tell me what city you're watching from. And hey, if you're still here, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss the next story.